Time now for Rocky Jordan.
It's not that I ever objected to publicity about me or my cafe tambourine appearing in the Cairo newspapers, but this particular item I didn't like. It said, Captain Sam Sabaya of the Cairo police announced today that the body found floating in the Nile last night has definitely been identified as that of the local cafe owner, Rocky Jordan. Well, the news came as something of a shock.
Again, we bring you a story of adventure with a man named Rocky Jordan, proprietor of the Cafe Tambourine, which stands in a narrow street off Cairo's native quarter within sight of the Mosque Sultan Hassan. The Cafe Tambourine, crowded with forgotten men from the world's waterfronts, alive with the babble of many languages. Now, Rocky Jordan, and tonight's story, The Man in the Morgue.
I was comfortably planted at a back table in my cafe tambourine, reading the afternoon paper, when I happened onto that item announcing the death of Rocky Jordan. My chair almost went over backwards. As soon as I could stagger to my feet, I got to a phone. I was certain that Captain Sam Sabaya knew as well as I did that the news of my death, and I quote, had been greatly exaggerated. Sam wasn't at headquarters, so I headed for the morgue faster than a relative going after a will. And I didn't stop for flowers. And there, seated calmly beside an occupied marble slab, was Sabaya himself. His face registered mild surprise and no signs of grief.
Well, Jordan, you look very natural.
I'm not laughing, Sam.
I appreciate your respect for the dead. Incidentally, I had hardly hoped for the chance to question you.
Why not get a Ouija board and commune with me in the spirit world, huh? Come on, Sam, what's the gag?
There is no gag. Your body was found floating in the Nile River. The coroner reports death by persons unknown. You were murdered, Jordan.
Okay, so I've been murdered. There's only one slight catch in your theory, Sam. I never felt better.
One moment, Jordan. Take a look at these.
What about them?
An American passport, a birth certificate, both wet. Made out for Rocky Jordan.
Yeah?
Well, what have you to say about this?
Plenty. They're my papers, and they belong in the American consulate. And unless you get a search warrant,
Calm yourself, Jordan. I did not take your papers from the American consulate. They were on the man found in the Nile River last night. Now, are you convinced that you are dead?
All right, so he stole my papers and was murdered. That still doesn't explain how you decided it was me.
You will see for yourself, Jordan.
Oh, let's stop this routine, Sam.
Now, perhaps you understand.
Begin to see what you mean. About my build, height, weight, same color hair.
And Jordan, observe that the face is no longer recognizable.
So that just wraps it all up, huh, Sam?
Now you see why this man is Rocky Jordan.
Okay, so I'm dead and murdered. And my papers have been stolen from the consulate. Well, thanks for finding my body, Sam.
Jordan, I agree that this is no joking matter.
Good.
Note the wire tied about the feet of the corpse. His body was never intended to be discovered.
It's pretty thin wire.
Indeed. And so it broke here. Thus, the body was probably tied to a weight. When the wire broke, the body floated to the surface.
Sam, somebody plants phony papers on the guy, then buries the body in the Nile so it won't be found. What kind of sense is that?
That is what I want you to tell me about.
Oh, what I know.
Stealing passports from the American consulate is not an easy task. I therefore assume you took your own papers. This, of course, is legitimate. Tell me what you did after that.
Sam, the first thing I knew about this was in the afternoon newspaper.
Jordan, please get to the point.
There isn't any point. I had nothing to do with it.
Very well, Jordan. We will wait until you decide to cooperate. In the meantime...
How about letting me have my papers back? I'm kind of particular who turns up dead with them.
Very well, Jordan.
Thanks, Sam. See you later.
Jordan, on your way out, please do something for me.
Yes, Sam?
Stop by the florist and cancel the wreath I ordered for your funeral.
I came up out of the morgue and breathed some fresh Cairo air. The American consulate was within walking distance, and there was a matter of missing papers that needed explaining. When I reached the consulate, it was locked tighter than a saloon on election day. I rapped on the glass door, but no answer. Peering in, I caught a fleeting glimpse of a face from the inner office, like the face of a terror-stricken child. It disappeared, so I knocked again. Just as I was about to wear out my knuckles, the face reappeared, and what went with it wasn't bad. Dusty yellow hair braided into loops that wrapped around her head. Her mouth was small and trembled into a smile. She raised her eyes to mine. They were not the eyes of a child. Finally, she opened the door, just a crack.
I am sorry. The consulate is closed. Please come back tomorrow.
Tomorrow may be too late, lady. This will only take a minute.
But everyone has gone home for the evening.
You're still here?
I do not count. I am only the consul secretary.
Look, lady, there have been some peculiar operations going on with my papers, and I want to straighten it out.
Your name, please?
Jordan. Rocky Jordan.
Rocky Jordan. I am sorry. The consulate is closed. Please return in the morning.
Oh, sure, but in the morning I may be dead. Again.
Dead? Again?
Look, Miss,
Routens. Laurie Routens. Please, what is this about being dead in the morning? Again?
Maybe if I could have a look at my files, I could explain it a little better.
Well, Mr. Disney would never permit it, but come in, please. I will get your folder. Are you planning to leave Cairo? Is it why you wish to see your papers?
Maybe.
You could go to America if you wished. Before the war, my father and I dreamed of America. But...
War's over. Maybe you'll have better luck now.
No. I've been in Cairo 3 years, Mr. Jordan. There are many of us, and quota numbers are few. Only you Americans can afford to be impatient. Here are the files. Now, let me see. Jenkins, Johnson, Chopner, Judson.
Gone, huh?
Why, there we are.
What? You mean you found him?
Of course. A little out of place is all.
Yeah, everything's here.
You act as though you didn't expect me to find them.
Maybe I didn't. Better keep a padlock on those files. Next time somebody might drop a death certificate inside.
I beg your pardon.
See you later. I left the consulate twice as confused as when I went in. That made 2 sets of passport papers. One in the consulate, one found on the body of the man floating in the Nile. Both identical and in my name. I was halfway down the steps when I saw a tall Atlas-type guy in a pink robe that hung to his ankles turn and drift around the corner. I walked the other way, but about halfway down the block, I stopped to think. It occurred to me that Laurie Rothens had made it just a little too convenient for me to get into the consulate after hours. It wouldn't hurt to check on her. I waited, and she came out a few minutes later. I shadowed her down the Sharia Kamal and finally saw her stop in front of a faded 5-story sandstone building that passed itself off as the Hotel Lydia. It catered to the uprooted of the world at 25 piastres a day. It was filled with people waiting for a quota number or people just waiting. Laurie glanced back, and I dodged into the alley, and then he caught me. It was an arm that reached out first, followed by the tall Atlas-type guy in the pink nightshirt. His big hands reached for my throat.
You! Now I kill!
Max, slow down.
Dirty pig! You follow her! You follow my lovely Laurie, my sweetheart!
Get it out. What's the biggest... Okay, you asked for this.
What is this? You hit me? Have you no sense, pig? You can get hurt this way.
Then we'll start all over again.
You fool. You have struck the prince twice. This is an insult. So now I will make you suffer.
Come back here.
I will choose my own time to kill you. Later. Yes, later I will kill you.
The tall man walked back to the street, stopped under a streetlight, shook his pink robe arrogantly, and strode off into the night. I stood under the streetlight, pondering whether or not to follow him when I saw a pink card lying on the sidewalk where it had fallen from his robe. I picked it up. It said, Pharaoh's Jive Palace. Well, I had the night off anyway, and maybe I could find some answers there. I headed down the street. The place was under 2 rug shops and what passed for a native drugstore. I took the stairs down into the basement. A glaring pink sign over a pink door shouted, Pharaoh's Jive Palace. I went in. Maybe it was too early for the jive crowd because the place was almost empty. In one corner of the smoke-filled room sat a small oriental version of Frank Sinatra laboring over a tobacco-stained keyboard. He was about 19 with black eyes, olive skin, and a white turban tilted rakishly on his head. Modern Egyptian, gone jive happy. I drifted over toward him.
You like it, huh? Really solid, man.
Like a rock. Listen, you know an overgrown fellow who goes around in a pink nightgown?
Sure. That's Hakeem, the doorman here.
Well, then maybe you can answer a few questions for me.
Oh, sure thing, Jack. Everything from Beiderbecke to Boogie. Piano's only a sideline. I'm really a songwriter. Name is El Had Bey. But everybody calls me Moonlight. Moonlight Bay. Get it?
Yeah, I'm trying not to.
I've written lots of stuff. Till the Nile runs dry, baby. That's my tune. Also, the Camel Hump Jump. My latest, Sahara Sue. Real gone.
I guess I don't listen to much music.
Oh, well, you wouldn't have heard these anyway. Nobody to publish them. All these guys want to listen to is twang, 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 twang. Hey, what part of these states are you from, Jack?
Oh, St. Louis. A little of everywhere.
No kidding. Say, what's your handle anyway?
Rocky Jordan.
Rocky Look, Jack. Last night I'm sitting here when in comes this guy. Looks a little like you, same size. Starts talking to me. And what do you think his name was? Don't get? I'll tell you. Rocky Jordan.
Hey, go on. What do you talk about?
He wants me to run an errand for him. Take some stuff over to the radio station. Says if I will, he'll give me some old Benny Goodman records. Tells me to meet him at midnight at his hotel.
Which hotel?
The Lydia, room 309. So like a chump, I do it. You think he shows up? He does not. I sit there till 4 in the morning. Some jerk. I hope he drops dead.
Room 309, huh? That all? He tell you anything else?
No.
Well, thanks for the info, Moonlight. I'll be running along.
Oh, hey, stick around. The band's coming in. Don't you want to hear them?
Sure, but not now. If you meet any more Rocky Jordans, let me know, will you? Oh, drop by the Cafe Tambourine sometime. I'll donate a record. Helen Morgan, St. Louis Blues. At least one item was beginning to make sense. It was the Hotel Lydia. I hailed a taxi, and we fought the evening traffic out of the native quarter. In 15 minutes, I was back at the Hotel Lydia. Just as the cab pulled away, I saw the tall shadow. He looked like he was holding up the building across the street. He and his pink robe again moved out of sight. Then, as I turned back toward the door of the hotel, I saw her.
Why, Mr. Jordan, I didn't expect to see you so soon again.
Hello, Miss Rothens. Who's your friend?
Oh, of course. This is Mr. Disney. He also works at the council. Mr. Disney, Rocky Jordan.
Rocky Jordan?
Don't tell me you got an uncle named Rocky Jordan.
I don't think I've ever heard the name before.
Hey, Disney, you seem pretty upset. What's the matter?
Mr. Disney suffers from a nervous ailment. The war. It has a long name. I do not know it.
Oh, that's too bad.
Mr. Jordan, we were just going out to dinner. Will you join us?
Oh, sorry. I got to see a man about a room.
Here? In the Hotel Lydia?
Why not?
Oh, nothing. I'm sure you'll like living here, Mr. Jordan. Very much.
Lawyer Rothens drifted on up the street with Disney walking nervously alongside her. Maybe the doctors had a long name for what was wrong with him. I had a short one. Right. I went into the lobby and over to the main desk. Behind it sat a clerk, his nose buried in a magnifying glass over a piece of dusty parchment. I took a chance he wouldn't know one American voice from another without a program. I asked him for the key to room 309. He tossed it on the counter without looking up, and I headed for the elevator. I pushed the button marked 3. It started with a bounce. Stopped. Started again. And the sliding door opened on the 5th floor. I closed the door, pushed button 3 again, and hoped for better luck the next landing. Finally, it ground to a stop at the 3rd floor. Room 309 was halfway down the hall. I unlocked the door, stepped in. The ashtray beside the bed was filled with the butts of yellowish Egyptian cigarettes. On a table in the corner of the room sat an American phonograph recorder gadget. And on a chair next to it was a small suitcase affair. I opened it and saw it was more recording equipment, only this was a portable outfit. I shuffled through a pile of records on the table. The 3rd one down had no label. I'm a curious guy, so I put it on the turntable and flipped the switch.
Hello, America. This is Bill Booth reporting to you from Cairo. I've come here on the trail of one of the biggest international rackets of modern times. Although the story is yet incomplete, I have learned enough to make both Cairo and New York sit up and take notice.
I was reaching over to turn up the volume when it happened.
Some of the
My head made a
remarkable
sound
tales
like a sack of cement hit with a
I
baseball
hope that
bat.
when I again talk
Before
to
I
you,
closed my eyes,
give you the
somewhere
complete
through the
details.
haze, I saw a
I
tilted
can only
white
tell you
turban
this,
above a frightened
that it
face.
isn't necessary for
The
me
face
to take
belonged
some
to
outrageous chances.
Moonlight Bay.
Rocky Jordan returns in just a moment. This coming Thursday is Thanksgiving. Be certain that for you and yours it will be a day of real Thanksgiving and not one of sorrow due to careless driving. Take it easy. Drive carefully. Obey traffic signals and regulations. It may take a minute or so longer, but you'll be there to enjoy the turkey and the trimmings. Now, back to Rocky Jordan and tonight's story, The Man in the Morgue.
I pulled myself to my feet and looked around the dingy hotel room. I sat down on the bed to think. It all started with a corpse with my passport, then a girl secretary in the consulate with a perfect set of duplicates. From then on, everybody began to react to Rocky Jordan like poison. A tall man in a pink robe, a jive-crazy songwriter named Moonlight Bay, a nervous consulate official named Tom Disney, and finally a reporter named Bill Booth, whose voice I'd been listening to on a record. I wondered how Moonlight Bay and the man in the pink robe fitted into the picture. Then I got an idea and headed for the door.
Oh! Why, Mr. Jordan.
Laurie Routhen's. I thought you and Disney were going to dinner.
Why, yes. I forgot my purse. My room is right next door. Oh, but you have been hurt.
Have I?
Mr. Jordan, could I talk to you privately?
Yeah, go ahead. I'm listening, lady.
Come into my room.
Well?
The man who had the room next door. I know who he was.
Oh, great. That makes two of us. His name was Bill Booth. He was a reporter. Unless I miss my guess, it was his body that the police fished out of the Nile.
But how do you know these things?
I try to keep my ears open most of the time.
I know why Bill Booth was killed.
Because he was too good a reporter, is that right?
Yes. You see, Mr. Booth came here to expose a powerful ring who have been smuggling aliens into the United States at a very high price. The scheme was almost perfect, for the immigration officials have never discovered it.
Simple trick with duplicate papers, maybe.
Yes. Excellent copies were obtained from the original papers belonging to Americans in Cairo, who had no reason to need their own passports.
So the aliens traveled as citizens. Tell me, where do you fit into this?
When the American consulate learned of Mr. Booth's discovery, they asked me to assist him in every way. I introduced him to various people as an American who wished to return to his country, but could not, legally.
Working him from the inside, huh?
Together we learned everything, except who was the brains behind the scheme.
You don't know who killed Booth?
I think I do know. It was Prince Hakim.
Come again?
The prince in pink. That's what he calls himself. Of course, he is not a real prince, only the doorman at Pharaoh's Jive Palace.
You seem to know a lot, sister.
Mr. Jordan, Tom Disney is my husband. He is a sick man. He tried to work with Mr. Booth and I, but he could not. We had established the headquarters of this gang as the Jive Palace. Tom was to go there, but...
It was too much for him, huh?
He was such a strong man when I first knew him. But now, my husband is a coward.
You mean he gave up the chase?
If this gang killed Bill Booth, they will kill us next. As you said, we know too much. Mr. Jordan, can you help us?
What's wrong with the police? They have telephones, you know.
No. The consulate has told us to have positive proof before we go to the police. We must be most cautious.
Look, Laurie, suppose you and your husband lay low for a while. Somebody planted me in the middle of this.
Rocky, you are going to help us.
Laurie, tell your husband he won't have to worry much longer. See you later. Now, for the first time in a long series of blind alleys, things were beginning to make sense. I headed back for Pharaoh's Jive Palace on the double. I figured some of the final answers were there. But standing outside the door when I arrived was one more obstacle, which made me slightly over par for the course.
Jordan, what do you come here for? Go away.
Yeah, the Prince in Pink. Look, Hakim, I don't want to play.
Jordan, how often must I warn you? Well, I suppose I have to kill you now.
Oh, why don't you come off it, Hakim? I got some questions I think you can answer. Second grade stuff.
Jordan, now you insult my intelligence. This is too much. I know like
Get
you.
your paws off my collar, Hakim.
Ha! Maybe you hit me again?
It might take me all night to carve you down to my size, but I'm in a hurry. Listen, about Laurie Routhen.
I warn you to stay away from my love. I am upset now. You go. Go!
The prince in pink towered before the pink door under the pink sign. My fist was already sore from hitting him the first 2 times, so I took another tack. I walked around the building and up the back alley. There was a small window that sent a shaft of light out into the darkness. It was open. I didn't wait around for an invitation. I let myself down through it and landed on a plush couch. The room wasn't as well lit as I thought, but over in the corner I saw one of the things I was looking for. His white turban was pushed back off his face, and his eyes lolled toward the ceiling. He was listening to a piano that sent notes all over the room. The man in the turban was my ex-friend, Moonlight Bay. Hello, friend.
Beat it, Jack. Oh, Rocky. Rocky Jordan.
Moonlight, you and I have some things to chat about, and I don't mean Vic Spiderbeck.
Now take it easy, Rocky boy. Wait till my man finishes his lick. Well, this is shortwave right from the States. He sends me.
No more licks. Especially like that one you gave me across the head.
I didn't mean to do it. Honest, Rock. It's like this. When I read this other Rocky Jordan was dead, I remember. He's promised me those Goodman records. I just couldn't see them get shipped back to the States, so
So you broke into his hotel room.
Sure. Then you came in. I hid in the closet. I got scared. I was afraid you'd find me.
So you slip up behind me and let me have it.
Listen, Rock, don't turn me into the cops. Give me a break, huh?
That depends on you, kid.
Anything you say, Mr. Jordan.
First, tell me about that character outside. The one who calls himself a prince in pink.
Oh, him? Oh, the big dope. He's okay. But at least he was. Till he met that dame.
What dame?
I don't know her name. She used to come in here all the time. Looks like a kid. Blonde hair, done up in braids. Gee, she's got the prince jumping through hoops. Look, Rock, you mind if I turn the radio back on? I gotta get back with the band in a minute. I want to hear this boy.
So ends an interlude of piano
my
music
man
which
is
replaced the
through
usual
playing.
broadcast
Shut
of
up.
Bill Booth and his up-to-the-minute news analysis. We repeat, our studio in Cairo informs us that the wire recording of tonight's broadcast has not been received. Mr. Booth is engaged in extensive research in the Middle East. Until tomorrow night, this is the
Moonlight started dialing for boogie music, and I went out the way I came in. It took me 10 minutes to reach the Cairo morgue and another 5 minutes to talk the sergeant into letting me into the place. I got to the corpse of Bill Booth, but the autopsy boys beat me to it. What I was looking for was no longer there. Then I got another bright idea. It was a long shot, but the kind you bet on in spite of the odds. Booth's clothing was neatly piled on a little table by the sink. Sure enough, there it was, under a corner of the water-soaked coat, neatly wound and marked Exhibit D. The long shot paid off on the nose. It was a coil of thin wire, a wire that had been wrapped around Bill Booth's ankle. It looked strong enough to tie a man with and bury his body in the Nile, but it wasn't. It was shiny and brittle, the kind of stuff you'd use only if you were in a hurry. Maybe it wasn't very strong for some purposes, but it might be strong enough to hang a man.
Rocky Jordan brings you the ending of tonight's story in just a matter of seconds. If you enjoy adventure, mystery, and excitement, then reserve Sunday nights for CBS. For not only will you hear Rocky Jordan at this same time, but you will enjoy Dashiell Hammett's famous detective Sam Spade and the Whistler. But it's time now for Rocky Jordan with the ending of tonight's story.
I felt sure now that the strand of wire found wrapped around the ankles of Bill Booth held the identity of his murderer. I grabbed a taxi and headed for the Hotel Lydia. When we pulled up in front of the battered building, I didn't wait for my change. The key to room 309 was still in my pocket. I decided against another excursion on the temperamental elevator and took the stairs 3 at a time. I opened the door and quickly stepped inside. The little suitcase still sat on the chair. It contained the portable wire recorder on which Bill Booth had transcribed his broadcasts from the United States. I opened the recorder, took the strand of wire from my pocket, wrapped it on the spool, and put the spool in place. I plugged in the machine to a wall socket and turned it on.
Lawful Esprusegibeth Sierra Nosripa Esapusa.
Might have known I'd get it on backwards first. I reversed the strand of wire and again turned on the machine.
And so tonight, I believe I can finally reveal the full details of this scheme. For tonight, ladies and gentlemen, I have a date with the ringleader of the group. The amazing part of it is that they themselves have led me to this person. And here is the biggest surprise of all.
Turn it off, Jordan.
For at this time,
I say turn it
I
off.
am able to give...
The door was open. Coming toward me was a little girl with braided blonde hair, a gun in her hand. Just behind Laurie Routhen stood her husband, Tom Disney.
I realize this is very dramatic of me, Jordan. But give me the wife.
Sure. Doesn't matter. There was nothing on it I didn't already know.
Booth had to be eliminated.
Laura, you're telling too much. Maybe he doesn't know.
Too late for that, Disney. My story's as pat as a full house.
We're holding 4 aces, Jordan.
The deuces aren't wild, lady. Booth had all the answers to the slickest little immigration racket in the Middle East. So you killed him.
One mistake, Jordan. I did not kill Bill Booth. My stupid husband did it.
But you made me.
Your own stupid jealousy made you, and you bungled the job at that.
But how was I to know he was the one with Jordan's papers?
It was your job to know. And only a blundering idiot would have used the wire.
Look, the family quarrel is very touching. One point I missed. How does Hakim fit into this?
Another one of her boyfriends. She wrapped him about her fingers like twine.
Sometimes strong men come in handy. Let's get down to business. We will make sure, Jordan, that your body will not be found.
I'm following in Booth's footsteps.
Immediately. The Nile will swallow any traces of Rocky Jordan.
I never argue with a lady with a gun. She directed me down the hall to the ancient elevator. Her husband, Tom Disney, fluttered nervously behind us. The door slid open and we stepped inside. She nodded to me and I punched the button-marked basement. It almost jerked out from under our feet, but the gun in Laurie Routhen's hands didn't waver. Then things began to happen like I hoped they would. The elevator bounced twice, settled, bounced once more, and came to a stop. The doors slid open. The temperamental elevator had done it again. We had landed in the lobby. There, framing the doorway, stood Hakim, the prince in pink. But what made the picture complete? Standing slightly behind him, flanked by 2 of his men, was Captain Sam Sabaya, Cairo Police.
Jordan!
Well, one thing you can say for Sam Sabaya, he knows a grand entrance when he sees one. It seems Sam's leading suspect had been Hakim, so he followed Hakim when Hakim followed me, which led them both to the Lydia Hotel and Laurie Routhen's. Well, Sam is happy. He got 3 new customers for the Cairo jail. Moonlight Bay is happy. He came by my cafe the next day and collected his record of St. Louis blues. For an hour, he converted the Cafe Tambourine into a bedlam of jive. Now I'm happy, because he's gone. Real gone.
Rocky Jordan is presented from Columbia Square in Hollywood and stars Jack Moyles in the title role. Tonight's story, by Robert Libet, was produced and directed by Cliff Powell, with original music by Milton Charles. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
If you're looking for murder, I know a guy who can get it for you wholesale. This is another in the adventures of America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator, Johnny Dollar, starring Charles Russell. At insurance investigation, Johnny Dollar is only an expert. At making out his expense account, he's an absolute genius.
Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar. To West Coast Underwriters, San Francisco Branch. Attention, Bradford L. Coates, General Manager. The following is an accounting of my expenditures during my investigation of the little man who wasn't all there, or in most cases, there at all, or the unpaid premium payoff. Expense account, item 1. 3 cents postage due on your airmail special delivery letter containing said assignment. I can just hear you dictating it.
Take a letter. To Johnny Dollar, you'll find his address in the files. Dear Sir, better make that Dear Dollar. Enclosed find copies of letters received by us from one Mr. James Yarbo, period. This man's wife was insured with our company until recently. One day before her death, her period of grace on an unpaid premium ran out. We canceled her policy in the amount of $20,000. Her husband, Yarbo, first made every effort to collect, then threatened us. Since then, we've received the enclosed series of letters intimating, without confessing, that he's had a hand in the accidental death of at least 12 of our policyholders to date. The police have been working on it, but are getting nowhere. If you are available, please come immediately. Yours very truly, Sophie.
Expense account, item 2, $176.87. Airfare, Hartford to San Francisco. Item 3, $5.40. Cab fare, airport to your office.
Dollar, glad you got here. You've no idea what a mess this whole thing is.
Okay, Mr. Coates, okay, don't get excited. We'll nail this guy before you run out of policyholders.
Well, the dozen he's apparently done away with already have cost us darn near $250,000. You've got to move fast, Dollar. The man is a homicidal maniac.
Yeah, but a smart one, though. He's put just enough in those letters he sent you to let you know that he's working on a grand-scale revenge against your company. But he leaves out just enough so the law can't lock him up.
He's had perfect alibis in every case.
Look, Mr. Coates, tell me, have all these deaths been local, right around here?
No, they've been all over California.
Mm-hmm. Well, one other thing, the method. From this list you gave me, Mr. Yarbo seems to have a preference for killing people through the noisy and gory method of fake automobile accidents.
Yes, very true. But what about this last one? Airplane crash. That was a $30,000 loss to us. Just think. Our poor innocent policyholder flying around and then his engine quit. Thanks to a man he's never even seen.
Tell me, Mr. Coates, just how difficult would it be to get a list of your California policyholders? Names and addresses, you know.
Why, that would take days, but goodness gracious, man, you can't hope to keep an eye on them all. Besides, the minute you went off the job, he'd strike again. That's a preposterous idea.
Time. Look, I don't want the list. I was just wondering how Yarbo got it.
Oh.
Now, so far you've given me nothing to go on. I'd like you to add 2 things to that. Yarbo's home address and a $50,000 life insurance policy made out to me.
What on earth's that for?
Well, look, in the first place, if we're going fishing for Mr. Yarbo, I might as well be the worm. In the second place, if I should get gobbled up in the line of duty, that $50,000 life insurance would make several attractive young ladies of my acquaintance very happy. Not, mind you, as happy as I can make them by remaining alive. Expense account, item 4, $30. Rental of limousine, complete with chauffeur. I figured if I was riding into trouble, I was riding in style. So I started on a house-to-house survey. You might say, knocking at death's door.
Yes. What is it, please?
Oh, I'm sorry to bother you, Mrs. Cianelli, but I'm from the insurance company.
Oh, yes.
It'll only take a moment. One question about your son.
Oh, poor Angelo. What do you want to know about my poor son? He drove away in his automobile, that's all. I'll never see him alive again.
Yes, I know. Tell me, Mrs. Cianelli, did you ever hear your son mention a man named Yarbo?
Yarbo?
Yeah.
Yarbo. I don't know about no such Yarbo. Now, please. Please leave me. There was so much sadness in my house.
Yes?
Mr. Dykes?
Yes.
I'm sorry to bother you, but I'm from the insurance company. About your son's plane crash.
Oh. Thought all those details had been taken care of.
But just one thing, Mr. Dykes. Did your son ever mention a man named Yarbo?
Yarbo?
Yeah.
That's an unusual name. I'm sure if he had, I would have remembered.
Okay, sir. I'm sorry to bother you. And thanks.
Yes, sir. May I help you?
Yes, I'd like to have a word with Mrs. Weatherly. I'm from the insurance company.
Well, sir, Mrs. Weatherly has been indisposed, not receiving visitors.
What is it, Brian?
How do you do, Mrs. Weatherly? My name is Johnny Dollar.
Oh, dear. You may go, Brian. Oh, I'm ashamed to let you see me in this condition, Mr. Dollar. Just ashamed. But you understand.
I do indeed.
Oh, it was bad enough. The accident, I mean. But the scandal. Oh, I'll never be able to hold my head up again.
Yes. No.
If Harvey had to get himself in an automobile accident, why, oh, why, I ask you, did he have to have that awful Mrs. Barclay in the car?
Oh, yes. Yes, it was very unthoughtful of him, Mrs. Weatherly. Would you mind answering one question?
Well, if I can.
Did your husband ever mention a man named Yarbo?
Well, no. No, he never mentioned a man named Yarbo. But neither did he ever mention Mrs. Barclay.
I tried a half a dozen of the other beneficiaries left behind by Mr. Yarbo's list of victims. All I got out of it was a very watery afternoon. The tears were falling like monsoon time in Burma. But of information, I got none. This brought me right smack up to a point I didn't want to have to reach. The point of contacting Mr. Yarbo in person. At 8:30 that night, I took a plan on Yarbo's house on Lombard Street. At 11:30, I saw the lights go out, as did Yarbo. He was a little guy, stooped over like he was looking for cigarette butts on the sidewalk, needing a haircut, and, true to type, wearing a long black overcoat. But worst of all was the little satchel he was carrying. Items like this always set off a chain reaction in my imagination, and I could just see him on his way to atomizing the Oakland Bay Bridge, thus causing the biggest automobile accident in history. I very cleverly forced my way into the house by breaking a first-floor window, reaching in and opening same. The cyclops eye of my flashlight started picking up information on the subject of Mr. Yarbo immediately. The room I had entered looked like the Hobby Lobby of an English bobby, a crime museum if I ever saw one. On one wall, a gun case. On another, a crime library. And scattered around the room, a grisly collection, ranging from blood-stained hatchets to shrunken heads. But the most surprising criminal curio of all stood right behind me. Mr. Yarbo, complete with little black bag.
Well, I must say the current second-story man dresses well, but I must also say you, my man, must have the old masters of the art turning in their graves. For you, young man, are a heavy-fingered bungler. There, let's have a better look at you. Now that flashlight, I'll feel better after you've dropped it.
Hey, what am I doing? You're not even pointing a gun at me.
Don't feel too comfortable. You are well covered from many points. A step from you in any direction may detonate any number of explosive devices.
Why'd I have to pick this joint to burgle? I feel like a city councilman playing a crawl in the White House. You seem more the kind of a guy I should be working for instead of on. What's your racket?
Racket?
Yeah.
You were in a racket, my little friend. My pastime is a science. Yes, I take it you are impressed with my collection.
Who wouldn't be?
Well, if you're interested, come here.
About those booby traps.
Oh, yes. Note well the design in the rug. The large roses. Avoid stepping on them for the time being.
Oh, great. And I was in here stumbling around in the dark.
May your good luck continue. But look here in this case, the small vial on the right. That was purloined for me to order from the famous Black Museum in Scotland Yard. That little vial once rested in the case of the fabulous murderer, Dr. Crippen. And there, beside it, that lock of hair, that is from the head of the second victim of the noted mass murderer, Neil Cream. And up there, look up there, the hangman's noose over the mantel. From that one swung the body of the notorious Western bad woman, Fanny Turner.
How's chances for running this place for Halloween?
Well, all right then, since you no longer seem interested in playing the part of a bungling burglar, then I assume that I am also free to discontinue my pose as a victim of your disguise, Mr. Johnny Dollar.
Oh? Looks like the chips are down and I'm the fish.
Yes, and there are a lot of other fish in your sea, Mr. Dollar. Poison eels, that's what you are, the lot of you. Parasites, gambling on death, and then not paying when you lose.
Listen, Mr. Yarbo, you're placing a big hunk of blame where it doesn't belong. You're confused about things.
Confused?
Yes. When your wife's insurance premium was overdue, you were allowed a 30-day period of grace. And when that went by, the policy was canceled. Now, that's not the insurance company's fault. It was your fault.
But it wasn't. I gave her the money. She spent it on herself. I didn't make it up. I told them so after she died. I told them, but they wouldn't listen. I'll show you. I'll show you.
Yarbo looked like he was headed to show me the chopping end of an axe laying on top of a small table. I hit him just as he hit the table. As he hit the floor, I noticed what I was standing on. One of those big red roses in the carpet. It hadn't exploded yet, but that was one flower I wasn't standing around waiting to see bloom. It took a lot of nerve picking up a telephone in that room. But I finally got a good hold on my nerves and a fair hold on an imitation of Yarbo's voice. Took one deep breath and picked up the phone. Yes?
Hello, James. This is Martha. I'm at the office. I have good news. 2 more. Mr. and Mrs. Granville Morse, killed tonight on the Great Highway, 2 miles south of Seal Rock. 8:45 tonight. Ran into a post, both killed. Insured for a total of $80,000. I gotta go now. Goodbye, James.
Well, congratulations, Brother Yarbo. 2 more at 8:45 tonight. And who's your new alibi? Me.
In just a moment, we'll return to the second act of Johnny Dollar. But first, did you ever think of "and" as a comedy word? Maybe not, but you'll get a full demonstration on CBS this Wednesday night. There'll be Groucho Marx and his guest on that hilarious quiz, You Bet Your Life. For it's the guests who sometimes floor Groucho with their wisecracks. There'll be Bing Crosby in his regular Wednesday night CBS show and his special guest, Bob Hope. There'll be George Burns and Gracie Allen and Bill Goodwin. And becomes more filled with comedy when you tell or learn that Lum and Abner will have their premiere as Wednesday night regulars on most of these same CBS stations. Yes, this fall you hear them all on C and B and S. Now with our star Charles Russell, we return to the second act of Yours Truly, Johnny Dollar.
Yarbo might have been lying unconscious on the floor, but in that setting, I was still afraid of him. I'd have looked the place over with a fine-tooth comb, only having none. I used my hands. I put the pat test to Yarbo's pockets for a gun. He was unloaded. Then turned my attention to the little black bag he'd been carrying when I saw him leave the house, and which he still had with him when he returned. I hoped it wasn't booby-trapped. Opened it and discovered that it was a trap, the type my kind of booby stepped into. Inside the bag was a small radio receiver tuned to something I looked for and found in the room. A small radio transmitter of the type formerly used in army tanks. Through this, Yarbo had heard me enter his little museum of murder and had returned to catch me in the act of prowling the premises. About then, I caught him in the act of coming through. Well, welcome home, Yarbo. Time to get up. I just had a long chat on the phone with Martha. She thought I was you.
You think you're very clever, don't you? Martha knows my voice. If she talked to you at all, she didn't tell you anything. Of that I am sure, so save your breath. There is no use your telling me she gave you any information.
Oh, no, you got me wrong, pal. I only told you Martha called to let you know I know there is a Martha. I figured it might make you nervous, and nervous men are easy to beat.
Other nervous men may be easy to beat, Dollar, but not James Yarbo. The police have tried, and they couldn't prove a thing against me. Now, may I have your permission to get up?
Yeah. Maybe the police haven't been able to get anything on you, but I have something. Attempted murder. The hatchet you went for.
The pitiful mistake of a pitifully suspicious mind, Dollar. I wasn't reaching for that hatchet on the table. I was trying to show you something in the table drawer. There it is, spilled out on the floor. My wife's insurance policy. The one your unscrupulous thieving superiors refused to pay. The vampires? Here, look at it. All in order. Much of it in fine print. Fine. Just fine.
Okay, Yarbo, that did it. Come on, ahead of me.
Where are we going?
To find some place to lock you up. I was hired to stop you, and until I do, I'm at least going to try and slow you down. Now move. Linen closet. No room here. Come on. Bathroom. No window. Yeah, this'll do. Go on, get in there.
No, not in here. Anywhere but in here.
It's a good place. You may get thirsty.
No. This is where my wife died. Not in here. No.
Which, on the surface, may seem to have been a move on the cruel side. But Yarbo was a man obviously off his rocker, and I needed him more nervous than I already had him. Too nervous to attempt killing any more people. Expense account item 5, a nickel. Phone call, downtown office, state police. Mr. and Mrs. Granville Morse had indeed crashed to their death on the great highway south of Seal Rock at 8:45, which made the lady with the early telephone news flash Martha, a gal with whom I wanted an early date. Come on, answer the phone. Hello?
What is it?
Hello, Mr. Coates. This is Dollar.
Oh, yes, Dollar. What do you want?
Well, first I want to tell you that you just lost 2 more policy holders. List price, $80,000.
Oh, good Lord. This is terrible. Who? How? What?
Never mind that. I've also got something else on the good side. I need your help tonight.
Of course. Anything. What can I do?
Meet me at your office. You and I are going to go looking for a dame named Martha.
Martha? Martha who?
I don't know, but I hope she works for you.
I'll be there in a half hour.
Make that 20 minutes, and you'll be 10 minutes closer to happy days. The office personnel records of the West Coast underwriters turned up not 1, but 3 employees named Martha, which gave me 3 choices as to who had been supplying Yarbo with a list of West Coast policy insurance policy holders. Finding the exact Martha was even easier. On the phone, she had told me that she was calling from the office, and the night elevator operator's in and out book showed the signature of one Martha Kinsey, and I just couldn't wait to hear her report. I've got a message from Mr. Yarbo.
Just a minute.
Message from James. Oh, what does he want?
Well, what he really wants is to get out of the bathroom. That's where I've got him locked up.
Who are you?
You ought to know who I am. I assume you're the one that told Yarbo he could be expecting a call from an insurance investigator named Dollar. Well, that's me.
Well, I don't care. James told me girls give out lists of names all the time. Sell them for mailing lists. 10 cents apiece. May not be ethical, but it's not against the law. James told me, and I believe James. Oh, he's the smartest man I ever knew.
He may be the smartest, but he's right in line to be numbered among the deadest. One of these fine mornings, the state is going to give him a cyanide egg for breakfast.
What do you mean?
You should know. Murder. Execution. Gas chamber.
Well, you can't prove a thing. James told me so, and he knows. Well, he's smart.
I hope he's not smart enough to pick a lock with a bath mat. Now, come on, sit down. You and I are going to have a nice, long talk.
We are not. I won't say a thing. I don't have to unless you have a warrant, an indictment, and a court reporter. James told me so.
Yeah, I know. He's smart. But no matter what he told you, you're going to tell me a few things.
Oh, no, I'm not.
Oh, yes, you are.
Oh, no, I'm not.
Oh, yes, you are. So, I was wrong. Martha didn't tell me anything. But her stubborn attitude did. She was in love with Mr. Yarbo, a stupid, middle-aged woman having her last fling at romance, doing her best to keep her last chance alive in the person of the man who had made her his partner in crime. As crazy as it was, this grotesque pair of lovebirds created the only real emotion in the case to date, and switched my thoughts from the widely scattered deaths which had brought me into the case, and over to the single death of Yarbo's wife. Enclosed, find a transcript of statement made to me at 2 o'clock in the morning by the doctor who signed Mrs. Yarbo's death certificate.
Cause of death, cerebral hemorrhage. Result of severe fracture of skull. Region, medulla oblongata. Contributing factors, woman bathing in bathtub at home. Slipped and fell, striking head on shower spigot. Coroner's finding death due to misadventure. Accidental.
It took the doctor 2 minutes to get around to making that statement. I figured it would take Martha at least 30 minutes to get her hair out of her curlers and make herself presentable enough to risk being seen on the street. That left me 28 minutes to get back to Yarbo's house before she did. And I didn't need half that long. In a cab on my way over, I took inventory. 1, to date, Yarbo's alibis covering him on all the so-called revenge murders had been perfect. Too perfect. 2nd, when I first faced Yarbo, he screamed about his wife's death, not in the light of having lost his lady love, but in the light of having lost her insurance money. Just as my third and most important conclusion came upon me, the taxi came upon our destination, and I had to go to work. Once inside the little horror house on Lombard Street, I got set for a long search. But it turned out to be a short one, and it proved 2 things. Yarbo was not only a murderer, he was as crazy as he'd acted in having kept the evidence around. Okay, Yarbo. Come on out.
Well, I hope you have enjoyed your waste of time, Mr. Dollar, as I've enjoyed my chance for meditation. You saw Martha, I suppose?
Yes, I saw Martha. Bless her silent little soul.
Yes, I was sure of Martha. She believes in me.
You can say that again. Come on out here.
Mr. Dollar, I suppose you are aware that this is the 2nd time tonight you have been guilty of breaking and entering. I am, however, willing to forgive that should you come to your senses and decide to go back to Hartford and leave me alone. Mind treading on the roses in the rug, Mr. Dollar?
Sorry, Yarbo. I fell for that gag earlier tonight.
People who smile at that joke give me the last laugh.
Now, look, Yarbo, I know exactly what you've been up to, and I know why you've done it. But your little war of nerves has got to stop.
It will never stop. No one can prove anything against me.
I can. I can prove that you haven't done a thing to bring about those accidental deaths you've been taking credit for. Martha has sat down that insurance office and notified you every time there's been an accidental death of a policyholder in this part of the country. Then you've written the company your little letters and gotten your little kicks out of it, right?
That's a lie.
That's the switch. A guy yelling that loud that he's guilty.
You'll have to prove it. You will have to prove it.
Don't worry, chum. I'm not going to waste a breath proving murders that you didn't commit. But, brother, I'm really going to go to town on the one that you did. Your wife, Mr. Yarbo.
That is the most ridiculous statement you have yet made, young man. Look around you. Take note. I have profited by all the mistakes made by the original owners of these bloody souvenirs from Dr. Crippen on down. You see in me the living composite of them all. And I intend to stay that way. Alive.
I'm afraid you will, but it's going to be inside an upholstered room. And this is what will put you there.
Oh, God.
Yeah, Mr. Yarbo, you carried your little hobby of crime souvenirs too far when you saved this hunk of pipe and the faucet with which you clubbed your wife to death.
She slipped and fell. She was in the tub.
I'm sure the police microscopes can give you a strong argument on that one. Now, come on. And let's make it easy on each other, shall we?
No, I didn't do it. I didn't do it. Let go.
Whoa.
Let go of me. You have to prove it.
James, what's he doing?
Help me, Martha. Help me. Hit him with something.
I'd have bet on myself against the two of them if I didn't have to fight while playing hopscotch over those roses in the carpet, about which I still wasn't quite sure. It was touch and go. Martha would try to touch the back of my head with something, and I'd go.
Do something, Martha. Do something.
I'll fix him.
The something Martha tried to do was pick up a heavy-based urn and aim it at me. She missed. It started to roll across the rosy carpet. When Yarbo saw where it was headed, he wrenched himself loose and dove to stop it. I dove the other way. He got there just too late. I didn't have to look twice to know he was dead. Fate had called James Yarbo up on his own carpet. When Martha threw that urn at me, it had rolled straight for the only rose in the rug that had been booby traps. Which only goes to prove that sometimes a rose by any other name can be anything but sweet. Expense account, item 6. $1.40. 3-month subscription, Love Life magazine. Sent to accessory to murder, Martha Kinsey, Tehachapi State Prison. I figured 3 months was about all she had, the judges and juries in California being rather efficient that way. Expense account, item 7. $6. Dinner and diving for pearls in a barrel of Blue Points at Fisherman's Wharf. Diving for Pearl's earring, which she lost while bending over the barrel trying to see what oysters look like. Item 8, $176.87. Airfare, San Francisco to Hartford. Expense account total, $942.08. Not including defense lawyer fees if you decide to sue me for not being able to add correctly. Signed, yours, truly, Johnny Dollar.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, is produced and directed by Gordon T. Hughes and stars Charles Russell. Script by Paul Dudley and Gil Dowd. Featured in the cast were Jay Novello, Martha Wentworth, Paul DuBois, Gigi Pearson, and Larry Dodkin. The special music is written and conducted by Wilbur Hatch. Be sure to be with us at this same time next week when another unusual expense account is handed in by
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Everyone is concerned about world affairs these days. If we want world peace, we'll have to have national peace first. In order to keep America's strength and prestige, in order to preserve her freedom, we must do away with group prejudice. Let's stop judging people by the color of their skin or the place where they worship and start considering them for what they do. We'll be sure to have a happier world. Stay tuned now for Vaughn Monroe and his caravan, following immediately on most of these CBS stations. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
fists were coming at me from both sides now. I was bouncing back and forth like a ping-pong ball. The room was starting to spin. I swung wildly a couple of times, got nothing but air. Then something hard smashed into the side of my head, and I went down on my knees. I tried to get up, but a size 13 shoe connected with my chin, and then all the lights went out.
The New Adventures of Michael Shayne, Private Detective. Michael Shayne, reckless, red-headed Irishman, is back again in his old haunts in New Orleans. This is your director, Bill Russo, inviting you to listen to another transcribed episode, which we call The Case of the Deadly Doe.
Come in. Come in. Must be hard to hear. What's the matter, didn't you? Huh?
Okay.
Hey, look, why the hush-hush routine?
Thought I heard a noise down the hall.
Noise? So what?
So maybe I was being followed.
Oh, look, little man, let's start from page 1. Who would...
You Mike Shayne?
Yeah, who are you?
They call me Wichita.
Who's they?
Skipper. I got a job for you, Shayne.
You know, that's the first thing you said that makes sense.
I'll give it to you fast. I haven't got much time. Here.
What's that, the key to the city?
The key to a baggage locker down at the Canal Street station. You'll find a little black suitcase in it. Take it to this address on Bienville Street in the French Quarter. It's an empty room. Leave the suitcase in the room and come back here.
Well, go on. What else?
That's all.
You mean all I do is pick up a suitcase and take it to an empty room in the quarter?
You catch on quick. There's a chance you might be followed. If so, shake them at the depot, huh? I'll wait here in your office and pay you when you come back.
That sounds simple enough.
It is.
So simple, I'm wondering what the hook is.
There's no hook.
And why you don't pick up the bag yourself.
Look, Shayne, I got $50 waiting for you. Does that answer all your questions?
Yeah, I guess it does. $50 just for doing what you said, huh?
$50. But it's worth it to me, Shayne. Believe me.
I left Wichita sitting in my desk chair and went down to the Canal Street station. He was right. I was followed for a while, but I didn't get a decent look at the guy. Anyway, I shook him before I got to the depot. I looked up locker number 1245, the number on the key. Suitcase was in it, all right. A small one. Bienville Street, where I was supposed to leave the suitcase, was only a couple of blocks away, so I walked. I hadn't been in the French Quarter for about a month, but it hadn't changed. It never changed. I could hear one of the last chimney sweeps in existence giving his pitch. Pretty soon I spotted him carrying a bunch of straw on a rope, looking very dignified and very dirty. I was in front of a grocery store now, and almost at the address Wichita had given me. I stopped and looked around again to make sure I'd shaken the guy who'd been tailing me. Then all of a sudden, there was something hurtling down through the air at me. I dove for the street just in time. It was a tin bucket tied to a rope. Another custom in the quarter. I looked up. Sure enough, on a third-story balcony was a worried housewife.
Excuse me, sir, I did not see you. I wanted to go, sir.
Okay, what did you want?
It's back, sir, soap powder.
Okay. Joe, the lady wants some soap powder. And Joe came bustling out of his store and plunked a box of soap powder in the bucket, which the woman hauled up to her balcony. Efficiency. Well, the rest of the trip was uneventful. I found the room. It was empty. I left the suitcase there and went back to my office. Well, Wichita, just about the easiest 50 He was still sitting in my chair, his head over to one side. There was a split-lipped grin on his battered face. Wichita had been beat up. It must have been quite a beating, because he was very dead.
In a moment, we'll return to the new adventures of Mike Shayne and the case of the Deadly Doe.
Well, maybe someday I'll learn that easy money always carries a hook. The easy money in this case was the $50 a little character named Wichita offered me to go down to the depot, pick up a small suitcase, and leave it in an empty room in the quarter. Yeah, that was the easy money. But the hook was coming back to my office and finding Wichita dead. And it had happened very recently. I turned and started for my office door to take a look outside.
In a hurry, Shayne?
Inspector Lefevre.
Take a look around, Dyke.
Okay.
Been entertaining, Shane?
Yeah, I was holding open house. He decided he wanted 2 lumps with his teeth. Now, look, Lefevre, this is one you couldn't pin on me with an ice pick.
Am I trying?
You will.
Yeah. Customer of yours, Shane?
Why?
It's Wichita, all right, Inspector.
Hey, wait a minute. You know this guy?
Wichita? I used to have a sort of a speaking acquaintance with him, but it was always pretty one-sided.
Well, who is he? What is he?
Shane, you ever heard of a guy named Dan Bascom?
Dan Bascom. Name's sort of familiar, but I can't...
Happened a long time ago, 31. Dan Bascom held up a bank in Baton Rouge. Big job. Almost $100,000 in currency.
Well, what's that got to do
We
with...
always thought there was another guy in on the job with Bascom. Ed Ferris. We could never pin anything on Ed. We had enough on Bascom to send him up in 32 for 20 years.
So you got a good memory, Lefevre. I still don't
There's
see...
only one little thing wrong with the case, Shane. We could never get Bascom to tell what he...
Oh.
That makes a dent, huh?
Why should it? Maybe this other guy, what's his name, Ed Ferris, got the dough.
That I doubt. I think it's still floating around somewhere.
Well, where did Wichita fit into the deal?
He was an old friend of Dan Bascom's. You see, Dan got some time off for good behavior. He was released last Friday and just sort of dropped out of sight right away.
You think Wichita had the dough?
I think Bascom told Wichita where to find the dough, told him to get it and bring it to him.
Yeah, that's an interesting theory, Lefevre. Where does it get you?
It gets me around to you, Shane. What did Wichita want you to do?
Run an errand.
That's all you want to say, huh?
Right now? Yeah.
Okay. But I think you're making a mistake. You'll be bucking big league opposition in this deal, Shane.
So?
So Wichita here got hit by a pitched ball. Could happen to you.
Maybe Wichita was standing too close to the plate.
Maybe. Just one more thing.
Yeah, I know. Don't leave town.
Yeah.
Inspector, you keep telling me that. I never do I? A couple of minutes more, and they finished up and took Wichita away. I could hardly wait till they left, because I had just 2 things on my mind. One was the little black suitcase I'd taken to that room on Bienville Street. The other was what was in that suitcase and the reward there'd be for it. I sat there a few minutes after Lefevre had gone, and then I started for the door. This must have been open house day after all. Standing outside my door with a worried look on her face was a very pretty woman. She must have been in her late 30s, but she hadn't lost a thing.
Mr. Shane, could I talk to you a minute?
Ordinarily, there's nothing I'd like better, lady, but right now I'm in a hurry. Maybe you could come back a
Please,
little...
I'm Zoe Bascom.
Huh?
Dan Bascom's wife.
Oh. Come in.
Thank you.
Now what's
Mr. Shane, where's Dan?
How would I know?
I don't know. I thought you might. I knew Wichita came here to see you, and I
Wichita's dead.
Dead?
Yeah. Murdered.
Then I'm right. The trouble's starting all over again. Mr. Shane, you've got to find Dan, make him give up this whole thing.
Now, look, I think you better start at the beginning, Mrs. Bascom.
I'm sorry, Mr. Shane. I know I shouldn't get so upset. Except I've been waiting for 16 years. And now it'll start all over again.
What'll start?
I married Dan just before he was arrested. All this time I've stuck by him. All this time, 16 years.
It's a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, when you love someone, time isn't so important.
Yeah.
I went to see Dan as often as they let me, and each time I tried to get him to give up the money because I thought they might let him out sooner if he did. He paid the price for taking that money, Mr. Shane, 16 years out of his life. I wanted for us to start over again when he got out. Without that awful thing over his head. He wouldn't listen to me. He would never listen to me.
Now, look,
Now he's out again, and I haven't even seen him. I don't know where he is, except he's probably after that money. He said he'd get in touch with me later. Mr. Shane, it'll start all over again. I know it. The trouble, the fear that money's toted with it. I can't stand it. I couldn't go through it again. I just couldn't.
Look, Mrs. Bascom, I'll see what I can do. I'll see if I can get your husband to give up the money.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Shane.
Well, I guess the thought of that woman waiting 16 years for her husband sort of rocked me back a little. And anyway, it occurred to me that she and I both wanted the same thing, to get the dough away from Bascom, although for slightly different reasons. She left after that, and I hot-footed it back to the room on Bienville Street. The suitcase was still sitting on the table where I'd left it. I started toward it, then I stopped.
Don't move, mister. Don't look around.
Okay.
Who are you?
Shayne. Michael Shayne.
Oh, the boy Wichita hired.
Which? You might be Dan Bascom?
Yeah, I'm Dan Bascom. The one guy you don't want to see, Shayne. But I'm awfully glad to see you.
What are you talking about?
Got any particular prayer you're fond of?
Prayer?
Start on it. You're going to die pretty soon.
Look, what is this? You mind telling me just why?
Because I've been through too much to miss out now. To be double-crossed by some two-bit punk of a private eye.
Double-crossed? I don't know what you're talking about.
Open that suitcase.
Huh?
I said open it.
Okay. What?
Yeah.
It's empty.
In a moment, we'll return to the new adventures of Mike Shayne and the case of the Deadly Doe.
It all started when a little character named Wichita offered me $50 to pick up a black suitcase at the depot and leave it in an empty room on Bienville Street in the French Quarter. I did, and came back to my office to collect the 50 from him. But Wichita wasn't in a position to pay off anymore. He'd been beaten to death. Inspector Lefevre came in about then and told me Wichita was a friend of Dan Bascom, who'd just been released from prison after serving 16 years for a $100,000 bank robbery back in 1931. It seems Dan had never told anyone where the dough was. Of course, about that time, I had my ideas, most of which concerned that little black suitcase. So I went back over to the room on Bienville Street. But this time, it wasn't empty. Dan Bascom was in it with a gun.
Shayne, you got just one chance to go on living. Tell me where that dough is.
Oh, look, I tell you, I don't know anything about it, Bascom.
Shayne, I've waited 16 years. 5 minutes more is too much. What'd you do with the dough?
Oh, get smart, Bascom. If I'd taken the dough, do you think I'd have come back here to this room? Either somebody came in and emptied the suitcase after I left it here, or it was empty when I brought it.
Well,
matter of fact, I remember thinking it felt a little light when I picked it up down at the depot.
My. I guess what you say adds up, Shayne. You'd have been a dope to come back here again if you'd taken it.
You'd take a lot of convincing, Bascom.
So, it turns out the one guy I thought I could trust crosses me.
You mean Wichita? You think he took it?
Yeah.
Is that why you killed him?
Huh?
Wichita got knocked off a couple of hours ago. You could have done it.
A couple of hours ago, I thought Wichita was my friend. I didn't kill him, but I got a pretty good idea who did.
Who?
Never mind, Shayne. I'll handle this my way.
Now, look, Bascom, your wife came to see me just before I came over here.
Zoe? Why?
She wants you to forget the dough. It spells trouble to her.
It always has. Zoe's a good kid, Shayne, but she's been trying to tout me off that dough all these years. I've never taken her advice, and I'm sure not going to take it from you.
Well, Bascom, I guess I didn't really think you would.
Yeah, Zoe means well. When I wind up a couple of odds and ends and get the money, I'll get her and we'll get out of the country. And I think after a while she'll get used to the idea of us having dough. Might even quit spelling trouble to her. Well, you're a lucky guy, Shayne.
Lucky?
Yeah. You're going to walk out of here alive. Start walking.
Well, I was glad to oblige. I went downstairs and out on the sidewalk. It was just getting dark. I started walking. I was wondering what Dan Bascom was going to do next. My guess was he was going to head for Ed Ferris, the guy who'd been in on the robbery with him, but who'd beaten the rap. And then a couple of minutes later, a stocky gent fell in step beside me.
Got a light, Mac?
Light? Well, yeah, I think so. Hey.
Know what that is in your ribs?
Yeah, it's a police positive 38 with a silencer.
Smart boy.
What's the idea?
See that car across the street with the big guy behind the wheel?
Yeah, why?
Let's head for it. 3 of us are going to take a little ride.
Where to?
Oh, now you don't want me to spoil the surprise, do you? Come on, get moving.
We drove across town and pulled up beside the service entrance to an apartment house. The 2 muscle men hustled me up the back stairs into one of the apartments. There was a guy sitting there looking out the window. A pretty trim-looking individual with a very innocent face, except for the eyes. Those, I think, he must have borrowed from a rattlesnake.
Here he is, Ed. Okay.
Ed, huh? Ed Ferris, maybe.
Maybe.
Do you mind telling me why these two gentlemen of yours gave me the rush up here?
You know why, Shane. Where is it?
Where's what?
The dough, the $100,000, where is it?
Funny, Ferris. I was just getting ready to ask you that.
The worst you get, you're lucky. Now, let's not clown around.
Ed, you want Rocco and me to muss them up?
Not yet, Al. Look, Shane.
I don't know where the dough is.
Shane!
Get straight. The way I got it figured, you or your trained SEALs here knocked off Wichita and got the dough from him.
It'd be awfully hard to prove about who killed Wichita, I mean. As far as my having the dough, I haven't. But I'm going to get it because you're going to tell me where it is right now.
Look, how can I tell you if I don't know?
Just to refresh your memory, Shane. Al here followed you from your office when you went down to the depot.
Oh.
But he lost you. I think Wichita took the thing there. The dough.
But the suitcase was empty.
Yeah, sure.
Look, why don't you get Dan Bascom to tell you? I think he's looking for you.
Oh, very funny. If Dan's looking for me, he doesn't tell me where the dough is. Anyway, it'll take him some time to find me. It'll be too late. I'll have the dough by then. Because, like I say, you're going to tell me what you did with it.
Look, for the 14th time, I don't know where...
And you don't seem to understand. I've waited a long time to find out where that dough is. Never could get Dan to tell me. Half that dough is mine. I've waited so long, I just figure now that all of it's mine. So don't try to stall anymore.
You're the one who doesn't understand. Can't you get it through your head I don't know where the money is?
Okay, Al. Rocco. Start now.
A pile driver right from the big apron hook up the end of the ear and drove me back against the wall. I tried one of my own on him. He only blinked his eyes. They both came at me now, and they were one too many. This started coming at me from both sides. Pretty soon I was bouncing back and forth like a ping pong ball. The room was starting to spin. I kept swinging, but was getting nothing but air. And then something hard smashed on the side of my head. I went down on my knees. I tried to get up, but a size 13 shoe connected with my chin, and all the lights went out. About 2 months later, it seemed like, the darkness started to fade a little. I started wishing it wouldn't, because I felt like one big bruise. Then I could make out that I was lying outside in an alley. There was someone bending over me.
Still alive, huh, Shane?
Am I? How can you tell, Inspector?
Well, you're lucky.
Sure.
Well, cheer up. You might have solved the murder for me. The hard way.
Yeah? Look, if I'm in line for a medal, I'll trade it for an ice bag. Whose murder?
Wichita. You're carrying the same trademarks on your face he had. Only I guess you're a little more rugged than he was.
3 cheers for me. It was those 2 trained SEALs of Ed Ferris's.
Yeah. Al and Rocco. We got a net out for him. It won't be long. We're also looking for Ed Ferris.
Try his apartment. I just had a delightful evening there.
We did. It's empty. But we'll get him before long. Well, looks like that's the case, Shane. Ferris had his boys knock off Wichita trying to get Bascom's dough. They didn't get it. They tried you next.
Well, then they still don't have it, Inspector.
You don't have the dough?
No.
You sure?
What do you want, an affidavit? I said no.
Okay. Shane, like I told you, you're bucking big league competition. You're lucky you just got struck out. Drop it now while you're still breathing.
You know, Lefevre, for once I'm agreeing with everything you say. I am going to get out. I'm beat. I dragged myself back to my office and took a look in the mirror over the washbowl. I could have sold what I saw in that mirror for 4 bits a pound at any meat market. I patched myself up a little and slumped down in my chair. Then it occurred to me that this was the way Wichita had been slumped over in that same chair, and I know a little of how he must have felt just before he... Then I saw it. A little shiny metal thing wedged into a crack on the inside of my desk down low. I pulled it out. It was another baggage locker key. It was like a shot in the arm. Suddenly I felt almost alive again. I went back to the depot and found locker 1247, the number on the key. Yeah, there was another suitcase in this one. I opened it just a crack, and it was full of dough. As I stared at it, I couldn't help feeling just a little sorry for Dan Bascom. Then I closed the suitcase, started out with it, but I didn't get far.
Hello, Shane.
Harris.
Yeah, keep walking.
Now, look,
Lefevre picked up my boy, so it looks like I'll have to do my own work from now on. You know, Shane, you almost had me fooled. I didn't think anyone could take a beating like that and still not talk.
Look, you won't believe this, Ferris, but I didn't know where the dough was then. Where are we going?
The car outside. You're going to drive. I'm going to sit beside you. Head for Claiborne Avenue and out of town. I'll direct you. We're going out into the country.
Ferris wasn't kidding. We went way out in the country. After a while, he motioned me onto a side road. Pretty soon, we pulled up in front of a little house standing all by itself in a clump of trees. There was a light in the window. We got out of the car and went into the house. Standing there in the front room...
You fool, why'd you bring him here?
Well, Zoe Bascom, the loyal wife.
Fool, you of all the places
There's
to
nowhere
go.
else for me to go, Zoe. They're looking for me in town. Anyway, it doesn't matter anymore. We've got the dough right here in this suitcase.
You got the money.
Right here in this suitcase, Zoe.
Wait at last. What about Dan?
Will you
He's
quit
out-
worrying about Dan? Time he figures out about us that we've got the money, we'll be long gone.
Don't be too sure of that, Ed.
Dan!
Drop it, Ed. Drop the gun.
That's fine.
Now, look, Bascom.
Shut up, Shane. I'll get to you later. Now just stand there real quiet, the three of you. I got a couple of things to say before I start shooting.
In a moment, we'll be back with a thrilling climax to tonight's Michael Shayne adventure.
Well, there we were, the four of us. Dan Bascom with a gun in his hand and murder in his eyes. Zoe white-faced, nervously rubbing her hands together. Ed Ferris with a sickly grin and me with no grin but sick.
So all this time, Zoe, it's been you and Ed. All this time.
No, Dan, it's not. Swear it, Dan, it's not true. You got it all wrong.
You got the wrong idea, Dan.
Shut up. You're gonna die, both of you.
No. Dan, I know.
Don't be a fool, Bascom. You don't know what
Get
you're...
your hand away from that gun.
You don't stand up.
Ed. Ed.
No more Ed, Zoe. Tough. No more boyfriend. No more Ed.
Sure it was Ed and me. Ed and me all the time. All the time just waiting to get our hands on that money. Sure, what did you think? That I was waiting for you?
Yeah, that's what I thought.
You fool. Ed and me. The money was going to be ours. I loved him. And you killed him, you fool!
She stood there with her eyes blazing, and I saw his lips twitch and his fingers start to tighten on the trigger. I dove for him, but he was too quick. He clipped me with a gun barrel, and I went down. Then I heard the gun go off. I twisted my head around. Zoe was sagging slowly to the floor, but her expression never changed. Hatred. Pure, venomous hatred. Dan stared hard at her for a moment, and then he looked down at me.
You lied to me, Shane. You had the dough all along. You're next.
Now, wait a minute, Bascom. I didn't have the dough. It was in another baggage locker. I guess Wichita knew he was being followed by Ferris's boys, so he figured out a way to throw him off.
What do you mean?
He sent me after an empty suitcase as a blind. Then I guess he was going to get the real one later and bring it to you. When he saw Ferris's boys coming after him in my office, he slipped the second key down into a crack in my desk. I found it there just an hour ago.
So, Wichita really was on the level with me. Well, that's something to know, I guess. I had one friend.
Hey, you paid an awful big price to find that out, Bascom.
Yeah, I paid big. 16 years locked up, a wife who turned rat, and this is what I got for it. A suitcase with $100,000. Not too hard a bargain.
Yeah, it's worse than that.
Better than nothing?
No, it isn't, Bascom.
What do you mean?
What you got is nothing.
Shane, you trying to tell me the dough isn't in that suitcase?
Oh, it's there, all right. Take a look at it.
Hey, what are you
Go
trying?
ahead. Yeah. Take a good look.
I've forgotten.
He robbed that bank in 1931, Bascom. They were still using the old large-size bills in those days. Well, you'd forgotten about that. A couple of years later, they changed the size of the currency. Started printing smaller-size bills. But that stuff here, you'd have just about as much luck passing Confederate, though, Bascom. He just stood there, stunned, like a pulled steer. For a moment, his guard was down. I knew this was my chance. I lunged for him, and this time I didn't miss. His gun went flying, and he crumpled over on the floor and lay still. I started for the phone to call Inspector Lefevre, but just then he walked in the door.
Bodies, all the time bodies.
Yeah. Only one of them will come to in a couple of minutes. You can get the story from him.
I'll be all ears.
I know. Now, look, just one more thing.
Yeah.
Okay if I leave town now.
This is your director, Bill Russo, again. Our story is based on characters created by Brett Halliday. The music is composed and conducted by John Duffy, and Michael Shayne is portrayed by Jeff Chandler. The New Adventures of Michael Shayne is a Don W. Sharp production, transcribed in Hollywood and distributed exclusively by the Broadcasters Guild.